Chuck Schumer is the Democratic minority leader in the Senate, is heading to Sun Valley, Idaho this week to meet with Hollywood elites and big tech elites, including Alex Karp from Palantir, in a secret semi-secret off the record retreat. Bezos will be there. Casey Wasserman from all the studio heads will be there. And they're basically all conspiring to determine who will be, the next Democratic, and I wouldn't say conspiring, but they're discussing one of the agenda items is who will the Democrats put forward as their next candidate. And so they're bringing out Wes Moore, who they're grooming as the next Obama, who's the governor of Maryland. But this is how it works. And this is why the Democratic base hates them. And there's a bunch of mainstream hack reporters who are being invited as well. Let me actually pull this up because this is pretty fascinating and no one knows this. This is called Allen and Co. And it's sort of like it's almost like a, if I can get this tab on here, it's like a Bilderberg type meeting in Sun Valley, Idaho. This is the Observer, which is a newspaper that's owned by Jared Kushner. So you can see the guest list. Barry Diller, Michael Eisner from Disney is going to be there. Bob Iger from Disney. Rupert Murdoch and his son, Lachlan, who fired Tucker Carlson at the behest of Vladimir Zelensky. And on and on and on. Jeffrey Katzenberg, former funder of the Young Turks. News media. Well, Bloomberg, who is maybe still the richest man in America, owns Bloomberg. Anderson Cooper, Andrew Ross Sorkin, Aaron Burnett, and Barry Weiss. That kind of stands out. Like, but how did Barry Weiss get in there? She's like part of the 0.1% hovercraft Davos elite, but she kind of caters to a center-right crowd, and she basically represents Israel above all else. And so then politics, it's pretty interesting that Wes Moore, someone most of you watching have never heard of, is going to be there. This means that you're going to be hearing more about him. Glenn Youngkin, he's the token Republican who's the governor of Virginia. Glenn Youngkin comes from the Carlyle Group. The Carlyle Group was basically set up in the 80s as one of the first consulting firms to bring people out of the defense and intelligence world into corporate America and make money. And then Schumer, that's the leader of the Democratic Party. So the Democrats could actually harm Trump on the Medicare cuts. I think they could have harmed him on Epstein. I think they should have done Trump Epstein instead of Trump Russia, that hoax, because Trump Epstein is real. The problem is Trump would have said, well, there's Bill Clinton Epstein. There's all these other figures in Epstein. So the Democrats can't do it. That would have hurt Trump much more. But the Medicare cuts are going to hurt him. But then you look at the Democrats and it's like, that's what they are. And their base is like just completely done with the whole thing, at least everyone under 45. They're certainly, the new Quinnipiac poll shows that close to 60% of all Democrats favor Palestine over Israel.
And that they want new leadership. The majority of Democratic voters don't like the Democratic Party leadership. And how can you when it's led by Chuck Schumer, arch Israel supporter, servant of Wall Street, and then Hakeem Jeffries, who just offers more of the same. He has the same policies as Chuck Schumer, and none of them are willing to so far endorse their own Democratic nominee for mayor in the country's biggest city, New York, Mamdani, because he's an actual progressive who supports Palestinian rights. So they're in trouble. They're in trouble right now, and that is that's the one aspect of domestic politics you can look at and say, all right, like maybe there's some possibility here, because the Democratic Party scam, the elite scam, is up, and the base is tired of it. And apparently they've learned nothing from losing to Trump for a second time, especially because of their refusal to distance themselves from Israel. Kamala Harris refused to do. She wouldn't distance herself from Israel or from Biden, who bear hugged Israel. And So that dynamic, especially with Zoran Mahmoudi, surging in New York City and having a good chance of winning, unless the elites put a stop to it. That's an interesting story.
Because young progressives, urban progressives who constitute a big part of the Democratic Party base, see Palestine now as something symbolic of a candidate's principles and ethics and whether they will actually stand up on principle, because it's one of the hardest things to stand up on in this country, because you're going up against Zionist power, which is hegemonic across the transatlantic axis. And so I think it goes beyond Palestine for Mamdani. And it's I think one of the best ways for a candidate to virtue signal in a big city in the US. The problem is it's hard for them to raise money unless they have lots of small donors, as Bernie Sanders did, and do that. But he pulled it off.